Right into it. We are going to study materials today. So I know I wasn't sure whether or not I was going to do materials. I finally decided that I do want to do materials, but I'm going to severely limit how much of the materialization process I teach you. So basically, all you're going to learn here is how to control whether or not your surface is glossy or matte or reflective or not. And the color. That's it. The reason is most architectural models in the academic world won't need anything more than that to communicate the essence of what you're trying to design for. Does that make sense? Yeah, let's just jump right into it. So I'm sure you guys noticed that there are elements like white glass, white plastic. Obviously, the glass is totally translucent. But you know, and I'm not going to show you guys glass right now, but really all you need to know is that it's really just two settings. It's if you right-click and you go to New Material, you're going to get this standard gray material. It looks like this, and I know we haven't really talked through the material settings very much, but what you should know is that there's not much that you change up here at the top layer, right? This is really just the name of the material, its identification, organization, stuff like that. The layer itself doesn't have much except for things that you would expect to see in a layering properties menu, right? So opacity, whether or not it interacts with other layers, and that's essentially all you have here. And you can create a bump map for it too if you really needed to. But this one is called a BSDF, and I don't know what it stands for, so don't ask. But essentially, this has all the settings that actually create what the material looks like. And I can explain some of them. I can't explain some of them, like anisotropy. I don't know what that one is, but basically, the ones that you need be concerned with are the reflectance 0, reflectance 90, and transmittance. The ND, sometimes K, and roughness. But really, the only ones that you and I are going to change here today are the roughness and the reflectance 0. So the reflectance 0 is essentially what is the material's color, or what type of light is it reflecting back at me when I'm looking at it from a it feels kind of reversed, but when I'm looking at it perpendicularly. The reflectance 90 is when you're looking at it angularly. It's an angular reflection. So essentially, if I'm looking at this color straight on, it's going to give me a gray tone, and if I'm looking at it angularly, it's going to shine, white, depending on where the light's coming from, obviously. If the light is 90 degrees away from me and it's bouncing off the surface into the camera lens, that's where that 90 degrees comes from. And then transmittance, I think, is generally speaking what kind of light gets through the object. So that's a little bit to do with your transparencies. But roughness is a graininess to the material itself. So it kind of creates almost like a chalky, almost like a paint sort of matte finish. So that's where we're going to be controlling how this thing actually looks. So the first thing I want you to do is to basically change the color. Okay, so that's the primary thing that we're getting into now with this exercise, is we're going to start introducing color. We're only going to introduce one color though. So pick your color carefully. I don't really care which one it is. I'm going to go with something that is pretty bold and a little bit bright. So I'm going to kind of go with a magenta. I'll start here and maybe pull it into the purple realm a little bit more. I want you to be able to see it on screen, so it might look really bad on my computer, but I'm trying to make it look good up here for you. A little brighter. That's probably good. All right. So basically, with the roughness being up at 99, that means that it's not going to be perfectly perceivable to have a texture. So if you look at like the ACT tiles right above, in this room, not on the screen, they have a very visible roughness to it. You won't be able to achieve that unless you put like a bump map on it that's going to actually cast shadows. So here it's just going to be this graininess. And after you've changed that color, go ahead and refresh, and you'll see that the orb in space here is refreshed to be that color. Then you can just close this and it'll save. Feel free to rename it anything you want. So if you want to go back up here to material, you can change the name here, and I'll call this purple matte. M-A-T-T-E. Yes?
You left the roughness at 99?
Yes, I did. So go into layers and pick one of your tracks, whichever one you want. I don't care which one, but pick something that you're actually going to be able to see the way that light is bending in a few interesting ways. So for me, I'm going to pick this bottom one because I can see a lot of reflection across smooth surfaces. So I'll put this on the purple layer, and that's just coincidence. I didn't do that on purpose. And then go ahead and do a draft render. Oh, I didn't change my settings. Huh?
I wonder if like your tracks are on one layer.
I'm sorry?
If your tracks are on one layer.
Tracks are on one layer. Then create another layer and move one off onto a separate layer. I do have one other thing because I just realized that I didn't change any of my settings. It makes sense to you can leave the f-stop and EV wherever you had it at that particular time, whatever you perfected in your explorations last week and over the weekend. What I do want you to do is go into your output properties, and where it says multi-light intensity, remember I could not figure out why my multi-light sliders were not there. You have to have it on production. So apparently when you do draft, it just gives you, a straight render, and it doesn't give you the ability to post-produce the lighting. So you have to do it on production. And then go back to draft render. Are there any questions so far? I know I didn't show you very much. It's just a couple of things with some explanations. Let's see, multi-light. There we go. I'm going to pull this off screen here while I'm doing this. Preview. Preview does not seem to want to show. Let's go ISO down. Leave the shutter speed kind of where it is, and then we can play around with these. Keep it a little warm. Oh, I might not have set my f-stop to the right value. Alright, I might have to go back and re-render this. Just a sec. So I'm going to use my autofocus since it didn't seem to be focused here. So autofocus to objects. I'll select this one right here. Yeah. Alright, redo this. I'm going to pause this video while it runs for a few minutes. Okay, and you guys should be running one as well. Okay, so I let this run just for a couple minutes. That's almost 5 minutes. Mine's still kind of grainy, so I think what I would probably wind up doing is rendering this out for a long, long time. I think something that I'm beginning to notice, particularly with Maxwell, is that the closer your lighting is to the actual camera lens, it seems to take a little bit longer for it to smooth out and buffer out the graininess. A little bit longer, not a lot. 5 minutes isn't too bad. I think this looks okay for 5 minutes comparatively. So one of the things here I want to point out to you is, and even though it's a little pixelated, is right down here. Okay, so when you guys are doing your design exercise, whatever the case is, you need to be thinking about some small details. So when we did our render from last week, where it was basically, and let me see actually if I can pull it up. This one. So this one, you can't tell the difference between one surface and another, okay? Because they are exactly the same material. I think I did them as the same material. Or if not, they're really close, and so it's indiscernible. But once you start changing materials, you need to think, down a level to a little bit more detail, because the believability of this as a possible outcome is very slim. So that would be where you might want to actually, change the floor material in some way. You could actually cut out that material and then just make it all magenta colored or whatever you want to run it as. It's up to you. It's a design decision. But, believability is very, very important. The next thing I want to show you is then how to achieve more of like a glossy kind of condition. We're going to do that. I might actually change this color. I'm not wild about it. It looks too emissive and bright. So, yeah, hang tight. Any questions? All right.